Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savedich. It's becoming rough. The RailCats are now 0-5. They haven't won a game. Now, these past two games, they've come close, and they have squandered it via a wild pitch and a bases loaded hit by pitch in extra innings to cause the losses. The offense has still become non-existent. Only a handful of individuals are producing when they need to. Other individuals are hindering the RailCats in succeeding. As far as, individual base running, when for God knows what reason Jackson Valera, a softly ball hit to center field, and he's sitting on second, decides, oh, I'm gonna run to home. I'm gonna steal. I'm gonna go home. What are we doing? You don't have the speed. You were out by a country mile. What are we doing? I try to be the positive person to take an outside lens and not let the portion of being a fan interfere with when I'm reporting or when I'm doing podcasts, but you can't be an individual like that. Like the first time getting thrown out in the seventh was mind-boggling. At least in the ninth, it kind of made a certain extent. I mean, you're sitting at third, one out. Bockley sitting at first after he gets a nice hit, which basically moves you over to second or over to third because it was a play that you could make it to third. And then you take off for home, which I as a person that understands baseball and understands the situation, I understood why Valero was going to go home. But two things went wrong there. One, he needed to wait until the second baseman committed to throwing to first. And he didn't. That was the first mistake. The second mistake was going as soon as the ball went to second base. He should have waited. He should have got himself a nice little bit of a lead, because the second baseman at that point shouldn't have been throwing home to stop you from going home. He should have thrown to third to try to get you out at third. I get the timing was off, because worst case, and this is ideally how that play should have broken down. Right, I know I'm jumping out of context to a certain extent, but I had to get this one off my chest before we get into talking about the games. He should have, in an ideal world, what I believe Lamar Rogers wanted at that point was when the play was made to short, for the second baseman to catch it, or my bad, it was hit the third. But anyways, the second baseman to catch it and start his motion to first. Because you're already, it's going to be a double play. It's either going to be a double play or it's going to be a potential play at the plate. Really, in an ideal world, he shouldn't have gone. Really, in an ideal world. But in the idea of what I understand what's happening, it's the top of the ninth. You want to put pressure on him. Your pitching staff has wielded you to this point yet again, and your offense hasn't done anything. Now, granted, this time we didn't out-hit them. We almost did, but we didn't. At one point, they were out-hitting them like 5-7-3, but that's beside the point. Would the play have been an either a overthrow because they're trying to rush it, or it would have been a very close play that played either out or safe. Like that's how that should have went. But I missed timing, and I wouldn't have been so hard. I wouldn't have been so frustrated if 2 innings later or 2 innings earlier he didn't decide to go from a second to home when he has the speed of a turtle. There is a point in a baseball game. There's a point in a season where your season can turn around. When you are struggling to score runs, why are you taking runs off the board? Why are you risking in the seventh inning? Yeah, I get there's 2 outs, right? And Basabi was coming up, who ended up hitting a ball to center field and wouldn't have mattered anyway. But you're risking a play that shouldn't have been made. Or I mean, my bad. That ended the. But granted, when Basabi came up the next time, he ended up popping out. The point is that you could have potentially had a different opportunity. And the pitcher really in that seventh inning, the pitcher really wasn't helping himself. He walked. There was an error. Bockley popped out, but then Gonzalez hit over Valera or hit to move the runners, and then Castillo I'm all screwed up. Looking at the seventh, let me just the seventh inning. So looking at just breaking down the seventh, Castillo's up. He extends his hit streak to 4. Then there was an error by the shortstop, which got Valera into first. Bockley popped out the third. Gonzalez hits a single. And then Valera drives in Castillo to tie the game. So there's 2 outs there. And then Diaz gets his second hit of the game. And Valera decides to go home. Like, it's a frustrating aspect of it. And not being able. I watched the last bit of the game yesterday when I came home yesterday after work, and I made the comment that I feel like the fielding that the defensive side has been a nice addition to the RailCats. They feel like but then yesterday was just a crapshoot, and I see the flaws, the cracks, even in the first run that when that was it the second inning, I believe, that they scored. Yeah, where they scored 2, and that was the frustration started way early on when I started the game, because I don't know if the internet in Franklin is absolutely horrendous. There was no Mixler for the RailCats. There was no RailCats side of the broadcast. The Milwaukee cut out when that crazy play that happened in the second inning. Looking at the second inning, Osberg singles to short, and then Smith doubles to right, and then Estep flies out, and then this is where it kind of goes a little weird. Santos doubles to left, Osberg scores, and then Amari scores, which are both earned runs, but it was like a play that it was like a little league play. The ball comes in at home, and then they throw to second, and the bobble it's a bobble there, and then it just they try to get him at home. It doesn't work. Like it should have just been the point where the guy was sitting at third, and you left it be. Like you let it be. It is what it is. You fight another day. The pitching staff has been a highlight of the RailCat season. Outside of the one game against Chicago where they gave up 8 runs, realistically, they've been really good. And defensively, are there some mistakes that the players make? And the mistakes that players make, especially on artificial turf, don't get me started on artificial turf, makes things absolutely worse because it's not normal, especially if you don't play on artificial turf. The bounces are a tad bit different. Balls bounce easier. They're quicker. They're faster. It just doesn't. It's not normal, right? I know when we talk to Gio Diaz that there's some artificial turfs that play well, like almost natural grass, But the issue is it's Franklin, and if you guys watch the broadcast, Franklin's got crap falling off the back of their pads. The Milwaukee and the American Association little stickers are falling off in the back of it, and then they have the noise ordinance. I'm surprised they even allowed to play day games with the school kids screaming everywhere. It, just overall frustration is just kicking in everywhere. The pitching staff should. I just. Yeah, you get the bases loaded, and then you hit the guy. It's just like that frustration. It's like everyone's gonna look at that and be like, well, there with the pitching staff. The pitching staff screwed the game, and that's far from the game itself. I mean, even like yesterday. I mean, I know it was a wild pitch that caused the game, but I mean, when you only give up 7 hits and your offense gives you 8 hits, but they're only scoring 2 runs, like something's going to give somewhere. You put the pressure on one individual person to make a pitch, bases loaded, and it just falls apart. And like that's just the frustrating part is, yes, we know that the offensive side is going to struggle out of the gate. You're starting to see positives from Gio Diaz. You're definitely seeing positive from LG Castillo. I mean, Marcos Gonzalez. I'm just gonna pull up the point. There's a certain point to where, like, yeah, hitting streaks and stuff are very nice, right? And that's cool and everything, but like when there's nothing being productive out of it, like Marcos Gonzalez has 4 hits and 1 RBI. Okay, Gio Diaz has 5 hits and 1 RBI. But he's going to be the person that you want to score runs necessarily. He's your leadoff hitter. You want him to get on base so everyone else behind him. Like, hit streaks and stuff are nice, but when there's nothing behind it, it kind of falters. Now, the averages are starting to rise versus what they were against the Dogs. But like, this is a Milwaukee team that's not. This Milwaukee team does not look like the Milwaukee team in the past. They don't look that good. They don't look threatening. They don't look like, oh, it's the Milkmen. It's the RailCats shooting themselves in the foot via errors, via terrible base running, really by one individual to a certain extent. Inopportune pitches at inopportune times, and some defensive plays that are just like, what are we doing? I'm just I guess I'm so frustrated because we're not winning. Like, that's the hard part is when you look at the schedule, right? When you look at the schedule in general, we know that the offense may struggle a little bit. But when you're only scoring 11 runs, that's not helping. Like, when you look at the scores, right, outside of okay, Chicago, the run difference was 3 across the board, and in this game the run difference is 1, right? So it's like the pitching staff is keeping the game remotely close, right? When I talked last year, I said ideally if you score 5 to 6 runs, you should be winning most of your games. And if you are keeping the opponent to 2 to 3 runs a game, you should be winning majority of your games. Well, what do I know? What am I talking? What do I know about talking about anything, I guess, at this point? Because the RailCats have kept teams under 3 runs in 3 out of their 5 games, and they still have yet to win. It's a pain. It's a pain. It really is. I'm not gonna sit here and break down the game individually, give a game recap over a game where really a handful of mistakes is what bit the RailCats in the butt today. it's one of those there. There's just a lot that we can break down, and just this game alone. Like, and don't get me wrong, this extra inning game flew by. It was like it's the 2 hours and 39 minutes. Like, this game was flying. Uh, and it had the, I mean, a 3-2 game. The game was just flying, and it was probably a much better weather than it was the game before. Um, but DNA Alvaro comes in and he gives up 6 hits, only gives up 2 runs. He pitches 5 2/3 inning. That's a highlight right there. Vitriago doesn't give up a run or a hit. Valdez comes in and just is Valdez. Like, he has been impressive from All-Star break last year to this point now, not giving up a single run. Neither has Josh Smith nor Vitriago. This is the first time you saw Vitriago. But Josh Smith hasn't given up a run yet. Nate Alexander's just been on the bad. Today was just on a bad end of a what are you gonna do? That you had the bunt single, and nothing you really can do. And then they bring in Ryan Munoz. He gets, I think he got one out, and then they loaded the bases with an intentional walk, which I get. It's fully understandable why you do it, because now you get it was the ground out to Gonzalez, and he held the runner back at third. It was like third and second at this point, and you intentionally walked the runner to get the bases loaded, and it should be, a double play here, and then he hits the guy, and then he hits the guy in full count, I believe. Like, it's just like, what more do you want? It's just one of those, like, I forget what inning it was that ended the nice double play from Sierra that was like, this could have been a breakout. It was the third inning, I think it was. No, it was the end. Where do I have it? It's somewhere in here. Oh, it was actually in the bottom of the ninth. Where Estep gets walked, and then Santos bunts the ball, sacrifice bunt, which gets Estep over to second, and then I think he originally then ends up going to third. I forget what exact. Think for point streak to a certain. Oh yeah, it was the sacrifice bunt to get him over to third, and then later walks, and then Pruitt Jr. hits a ball to Miguel Sierra, and they turn a nice, beautiful double play to end the inning, and you have so much momentum coming off of that. And then you go into the 10th, where I know it kind of gets little, but Miguel Sierra sacrifice bunts, puts over Marcos Gonzalez, and then Basabe flies out, and then Gio Diaz pops out. Like, you had all the momentum, then it kind of just like, and it all kind of falls apart. And then it was just a frustration. I think it is, and I you know what, and I know the players feel the frustration, and I think that's the part that irks me a little bit about the Valera base running situation, is that, like, there is a time and place to where you can be a hero, right? And right, we could be sitting here going, wow, what smart base running from Jackson Valera if he would have scored on both of those, because you never know. The guy throwing home from second, from center field could have missed by a country mile. I'm like, oh wow, that was a great job, he did that. I know you could play devil's advocate at this point, but I'm pretty sure the throw wasn't perfect. It was offline, and he had time to go over and tag him. Like, the camera doesn't show. That's why I can't wait to get back to the steel yard so I can actually watch the game and see everything going on, because when you're not at the game and you're watching on TV, you don't get the little tidbits of, was Lamar Rogers telling him to go, or was Lamar Rogers telling him, hey, stay, and he just blows past it, right? But the interaction that they had in the top of the ninth, to me, seemed like Lamar Rogers is not very happy with the way base running Jackson Flair is it's running so far. If it was a Gio Diaz, completely understandable. You could probably say an LG Castillo. There's a couple speedsters. Not terribly. I would say Gio Diaz right now is the only one, and besides Will Decker, the only ones that are like, yeah, go. You're fast. Go, 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 go. Valera's not one of those guys. Like, that's just, I think, if to take away anything from today's game, is it comes down to fundamental errors that bit the RailCats. The offense isn't producing the way it should be. This is almost like the 2022 season, where the pitching staff really held the RailCats together, right? And then the offense was just there, trying to catch up, right? And I don't want them to get burnt, right? And to burnt down, because eventually you're going to get to the point to where you get through the dog days of August and so on and so forth, in the summer days, where your pitching staff may not be the best, where they may have a cold spell, and you need your offense to back you up. And like, this is where the inconsistency still comes into play. And is this just a product of I can't say that the way Lamar Rogers put this team together, that I'm going to put full blame on him. If the pitching staff was absolutely horrible, and the offense was absolutely horrible, and the defensive plays were absolutely horrible, I would say, yeah, you know what, this is the case. But it's the offensive side of things, or the defensive side of things, especially the pitching, isn't. I have no complaints so far. Yeah, you gave up 8 runs on a really good Chicago team, but outside of that, you keep them under, you keep them to 3 in the first game, you keep them to 5. Like, that's how they are. And then you take a Milwaukee team that's probably not the best, but you give them only 3 runs. You're getting production from your pitching side of things. It's just the offense just isn't there. Scoring 5 runs in one game is great, but getting shut out in the first game of the season, that's never a good. Leaving, I think, they left 7 runners on base. I mean, like, Milwaukee left 10 runners on base, but they were more productive to a certain extent. I just, it's, I feel for the pitching staff at this point. There are players that are showing signs that they can be productive, but I am afraid that they're going to put themselves in this hole, and they're not going to be able to dig themselves out. You're right. You can't win the Miles Wolf Cup at the beginning of the year, but you sure as heck can lose making the playoffs. Going down 5, like, that's like, when we look at the standing, I'm going to look at the standings right now, because I know I said I was going to do the last podcast, and I didn't. Right now, the RailCats are 0-5. And Lake Country is 1-3. So they're a game and a half behind Lake Country. And they are 3 games behind Milwaukee at this point for a playoff spot. They're 3.5. When you look at, they're only 3.5 games back from the division lead, but we're early on in the season. Like, a 5-game losing streak. Like, everyone else besides Lake Country in the division has a winning streak. Or not a winning streak, has a winning record. And then when you look at, like, overall, I don't know if there's any other team that hasn't won a game yet. No, the RailCats are the only team not to win a game so far. Explorers are 1-4. They're only 2 games back. Like, you got to make yourself. Something's got to change. Something has to happen. I don't know what it necessarily is going to be. At this point, to me, the only players that should be playing every day right now are Diaz, Basabi, and Basabi. The only reason I would say right now is because of what he's been able to do at second base, or at third base, right? That's the only one I would say. Third base, he's he's been productive there, especially fielding wise. Um, but hitting wise, he hasn't shown anything crazy. And I mean, he's hit one home run and with one RBI, whoop de doo in 5 games. I guess when you go over a 100-game season, that's 20 home runs. The RailCats don't hit a lot of home. Like, it's just there's not a lot of home runs outside of that. LG Castillo hits a home run, but he has 3 RBIs, going for him. But Sierra, okay, he's batting a 211. He's been decent at short. I think Marcos Gonzalez is batting a 211. I don't think he's really been that impressive at second base. He drove in a run, but you could probably try. I think you would make your infield a lot better if you bring Gio Diaz in from center field and put him at second, right? And you just have a rotation. Will Decker, I just think there's some players that just need to be rotated. Guillermo Quintana, you need to bring Anders Noriega in more. I know. I granted that he only got 2 at bats. He only played in 1 game. There's got to be a rotation somewhere. Jacob Bockley, I think, has been really good at a DH role. Granted he's only played in 3 games, and he's batting a 2.22. But I mean, he's up in the top there. Valera, Castillo, like there's a handful of people that should be playing every day, and there's some that should be rotating. I just at some point something's got to change. Something's got to click. Something's got to be different, and that's what we're not getting to that different portion of it. We look. I get it. Gio Diaz extends his hitting streak to 3. LG Castillo hits it to 4. Marcos Gonzalez goes to 4. But right now, the most productive RailCat that we have is LG Castillo with 3 RBIs. And he has 4 runs. Like, okay, Guillermo Quintana he scored 3 runs, but that's not the production we're used to seeing from I know that we're hurting because we don't have Jesus Mariaga. Like we don't have Francisco Del Valle. Like I get it. Like we have to wait for those players to come in. I know Francisco Del Valle is still playing. Like we're not gonna get him until he's done playing, and I'm not sure about what's going on with Jesus Mariaga because every time I see him on Instagram, he's posting food. Like I don't know if it's just a visa issue. I don't know if he's still. I just don't know what's going on there. But I would say you give the rest of May to this team, this lineup, and they need to figure something out before things start changing. The pitching staff, I wouldn't touch right now. The pitching staff's fine. They're holding on to their end of the bargain, High Thresh. But the offensive side is not. It's frustrating. It's just frustrating. So I hope tomorrow is a different story. I really do. I hope tomorrow they can get a win on the board. We can see Lake Country, and we can hopefully get a sweep out of them, bring it to a 4-5 record, and make this thing a little bit more respectable. Because something's got to change. And I thought today, I felt it. It felt like it was going to happen. Gio Diaz getting a single to start it off, then he gets caught stealing, and then it just kind of goes on the wayside, and it's just frustration after frustration after frustration. But I mean, what are you gonna do at this point? You can just sit back and watch, and hopefully the team turns it around. That's all I got for that one. That's all I got for today. It sucks to be on a 5-game losing streak, being a fan and seeing the team sucks. I know it sucks even worse for the RailCat players and Lamar Rogers. Because really at this point, Lamar Rogers put so much trust in some of these players, and they're just not executing for him. Like that's the part that kills me, that frustrates me, is it's easy to say that, oh, well, the roster you put in may not be the best or may not be the most consistent. You're right, we're seeing the inconsistencies, but come on, isn't that most players that play in this league to a certain extent, right? There's some kind of flaw to every player that plays in this league. And it's one of those times that you just really wish that things could just turn around a little bit and be better, and for people to figure it out. I'm not saying that things aren't looking better, because they are. From the first game to this game, things are looking better, but there's some cracks that are showing. And if winning a game can do a lot, and not winning right now is going to hurt more than anything. It's going to turn that locker room into something worse than it needs to be. And we don't need that again. We just need the hitters to pull their end of the bargain so the pitching staff can be happy, or vice versa. If the hitting was going on, the pitching, just even kill it. Need to figure it out. I get it. You start on the road, right? And you go from there. Let's just take a deep breath. 5 games in. I know it's 5 games, and it's still a lot, but it could be a lot worse. So let's just get the win tomorrow. All right, let's just get the win tomorrow and call it a day. It's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this. And go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Wrap this one up in green and white.